some like to say blessed Easter. I haven't been on YouTube for ages, which was not what my plans were because I've been really unwell this year. So there goes all my YouTube plans out the window, but never mind. I'm here and I really wanted to share with you today because today's Easter Sunday or some call it Resurrection Sunday. And anyway, it's such an awesome day. I went to church this morning and I'm just so excited, so filled up and lit up, and I wanted to share with you why I'm so excited. So if you're a Christian, you will probably already understand what Easter is all about. In fact, a lot of people who are not Christians understand it too. But I wanted to make sure, for those of you who aren't sure about it, I just wanted to really clarify what the important part about today is. So the story of Easter, basically the whole of Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, today, it starts off that Jesus, well actually it started last Sunday, which is Palm Sunday, when Jesus came into Jerusalem on a donkey, and they all waved palms and waved them and put them down on the ground for him to walk over. And all the people in there rejoiced and praised him and worshipped him. And then during the week, the crowds turned on him. So for 1 minute, he was like the most amazing guy, and the next minute, he was the most hated. So on Maundy Thursday, it actually was celebrating Jewish Passover. I'm not quite sure where the word Maundy comes from. Should have really looked that up, but oh well. But back in Jesus' time, they were celebrating the Passover festival, which is actually in remembrance or honor, or it's a festival that actually marked the Israelites coming out of Egypt back in Moses' day. You know, Moses, who parted the Red Sea so that all the Israelites could escape from the Egyptians. And then they travelled around the desert for 40 years before God brought them to the promised land that they had of milk and honey. The Canaanite land, I think it was. Ugh. Anyway, before they left, God had actually told Moses special instructions. The instructions were they had to eat certain foods. They had to kill a certain like most purest lamb that they had. I think it was a firstborn lamb, can't quite remember. And they also had to brush blood over their door lintels, the door frame. And so that blood from the lamb that they slaughtered, when the angel of death came over, they knew that was a place that was safe. It was like safe. It was one of God's people. And therefore the angel passed over that doorway. Everyone in Egypt who didn't have that blood brushed on their doorway, that family or that household, their firstborn son was killed. So that's how the name Passover came, and it was actually, so then they like celebrated it every year like we celebrate Easter and Christmas. And so that's what they were doing going back to Jesus' time on Maundy Thursday. So the Thursday night, Jesus and his disciples actually had a special Passover dinner. Now at the original Passover, they had to eat certain bitter herbs. The lamb had to be cooked a certain way. And you know what? I've actually been to a church service on a Maundy Thursday where we had that exact kind of food, because the Bible does describe it pretty clearly what they had to do and eat. And of course at the church service we didn't have to put blood anywhere, and we didn't make sure it was like the first killed lamb or whatever, but oh my gosh, the food was actually surprisingly delicious, which shouldn't be surprising because God made it. Anyway, that was just a side story, which I do all the time. So they were having Passover, and that's when Jesus did the first Holy Communion, although back then they wouldn't have seen it that way. He said, take and eat this bread, this is my body, which is given for you, and do it in remembrance of me. Then he did the same with the blood, the cup. Took the cup of wine and said, this is my blood given and shed for you for the forgiveness of your sins. Do this in remembrance of me. Now, they are basically what we call in the Lutheran Church the words of institution that the pastor says before he serves communion. But that was actually the very first communion that night. So not only was it celebrating the Passover from, hundreds and hundreds of years earlier, it actually also started another tradition. Although it's not really a tradition, we call it a sacrament. And it's something that's very holy, and it's something that means when you partake of it, we believe that the wine and the bread is actually Jesus' body as well, and his blood. And that's what cleanses us from sin on a daily basis, or however often you have it. There's a lot more to Holy Communion, and I'll make a video about that. But anyway, so after they had the Last Supper, Lord's Supper, Passover meal, whatever you want to call it, they then went to the Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus prayed. And while he was there, I am skipping lots of bits, while he was there, that's when Judas came with the temple guards and soldiers, and he betrayed Jesus with a kiss. He had previously told them that he would kiss the one who is the Messiah. So he went up to him, gave him a kiss. They realized, okay, that's Jesus, and that's how they arrested him. So pretty nasty, and I can only imagine the sense of betrayal that Jesus would have felt, even though he knew it was going to happen. I've had people betray me quite badly, but I think that's the ultimate betrayal, that one. Anyway, so Jesus obviously then got locked up. He went before not only the temple courts, but then he also had to go before the Romans. And long and short story, they sentenced him to death. They put him on the cross, and he died on the Friday. So that's why we have it as a Good Friday. It's good because he did it for us. It's not good. It's horrible and it's sad, and no one should have to sacrifice themselves for other people, but that's God. That's what he does. He loves us so much that even though in a sense we're punished because we sin, where our punishment is death, he actually made a loophole for that death. So while we might die in our bodies, our souls can continue to live on. And, if we repent and we believe in him, then our soul doesn't go to hell. It's going to go to heaven, and it'll be, forever and ever and ever wonderful. God made that happen by sending Jesus to die for us. He sacrificed his own child to actually save us. And it's something that I don't think any human will ever really understand. Like, how does killing somebody else, or how is somebody else dying, save you? But maybe that's just a mystery of God. It's just something that when you have faith, you believe. So anyway, Jesus was on the cross. He actually died a lot quicker than normal, which partly somehow proved that he was actually Jesus, because being killed through crucifixion can last days, and he died very, very quickly. So what happened then is, once he died, they have a rule that on the Sabbath, which was the Saturday back then, because they were all Jews, that they needed him in the ground before it was nighttime. Like, they need to bury him. So this one man who was actually what do you call him, like an elder of the temple, he actually already had a tomb ready for his own family that no one had used before. So they placed him in there, and because it was Sabbath the next day, Mary, Jesus' mum, and the other ladies, they couldn't actually prepare his body for burial. There wasn't time before the Saturday / the Sabbath started. So they went back there on the Sunday morning, and lo and behold, even though there were Roman guards guarding the tomb, this massive, huge, heavy stone that would be almost impossible to move without a horde of men, it was just pushed away from the opening. And depending on which gospel you read, some say that the tomb was completely empty. Another, I think Luke, says that there were angels sitting there instead. And they actually say to Mary, I'm not sure which Mary, whether it's Jesus' mother, or there's a few Marys in the New Testament. I get a bit confused by them. But they say to her, why do you seek the living among the dead? He's not here, he's risen. And she's confused. And then another version says that she actually sees a gardener. She goes up to the gardener and says, where have they taken him? And he looks at her and he says, Mary. And when he says Mary, her name, it's like the shutters fall and she realizes it's actually Jesus that she's talking to. And over the course of the next 40 days, Jesus does appear to quite a lot of people. So just to prove that he's real, and like they can touch him. Thomas didn't believe him until he put his fingers, Thomas was one of the disciples, by the way, until he put his fingers into the wounds where those nails went. He ate food with some of his disciples to prove to them that he's not a ghost. Yeah, it's I guess thinking back, if I was there at that time, it would be pretty crazy to believe that someone who said who was dead, everyone saw that he was dead, is suddenly alive and eating and walking and talking. And he only hung around for 40 days before he then did go to heaven. But what I want to actually talk about, the most important part of this whole thing, and the most important part of the Christian faith, is obviously it's Easter, this whole weekend, this whole story that I've been sharing with you. But the most important part is that Jesus rose again. Anyone can die, but who has the power to rise again? Nobody. Absolutely, there is not one person on this earth who can rise. And in doing that, he fulfilled so many scriptures from the Old Testament. So in the Bible, there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. The New Testament begins with Jesus' life and story, his ministry, everything about him, the first 4 books of the New Testament. And with Jesus dying on the cross came grace. Now, grace is a huge deal, especially for Lutherans, because, that's a big part of our thing. But grace basically means that you don't have to live by the law of the Old Testament. The Jews at that time were still living by all the laws that Moses gave them, that God gave them, through the commandments and through many other laws. I think it's Deuteronomy and Leviticus that have all the laws in them, if you want to read those books in the Old Testament. There were a lot. And nowadays there are still people that live by those laws, but I think in doing that, it actually wipes out what Jesus did for them, because Jesus did that so that we don't have to live by law anymore. Jesus saved us by dying so that we can live in the grace that comes with his sacrifice. So that's not to say that we can just go do any sinning that we want. Oh, it doesn't matter, Jesus died for me, I'm forgiven anyway. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that if you stuff up, hey, it's not the end of the world, because he still loves you. So long as you can tell God that you're sorry for what you've done wrong, he will always forgive you. Always. And I think that's such a wonderful thing to live in, is knowing that it's so unconditional. Like, I grew up in foster care, and my foster parents, there were times when their love was very, very conditional, and you never knew when the bottom was going to drop out. You know, you did something bad. Oh, well, we're going to divorce because of that. You did something bad. Oh, you're going to go to hell because of that. You're a demon child, you know. And growing up hearing that kind of stuff is horrible. But then when you know that, I mean, imagine if God said that to me, I would be cut to the core. And this is the great thing about grace, is that God's never going to condemn you for the stuff that you've done wrong, ever. He's just going to go, well, you know what? You tell me what you did wrong, tell me that you're sorry, ask for my forgiveness, and it's yours. And you know what? It's actually yours before you even do those things. But in humility, it's good for us to do that stuff, because we need to acknowledge and own the stuff that we do that's wrong. We really do. And that's just being responsible and obeying God in doing what he asks us to do, which is such a huge thing too, obeying him and just doing what he asks us to do. So I know I've kind of waffled a little bit, but I hope that I've really explained to you why it's so important that Easter be celebrated, because Jesus rose. In fact, interesting point, they actually, when they were interrogating him on like Thursday night, Friday morning, I don't have my Bible on me because it's on my phone, and my other ones are all out there somewhere. I should have planned that better. But he actually basically said that he will tear down and rebuild the temple in 3 days. And they all are thinking he means like a literal building temple. But what he actually meant is that when he dies, he's going to hell, he's fighting Satan, he's beating Satan, Satan is just nobody. And by Jesus then rising again from the dead, that's rebuilding his temple, or the temple. Hope I'm getting that right. I hope my theology's not a bit stuffed there, because I'm just talking and not really thinking. But, you know, I just really want you to understand that the most important thing is that he rose, and he rose for you, and he rose for me. So if you ever feel like you're beaten down, that others are hassling you and they won't leave you alone, that you're bullied, that you also might have parents that are not so crash hot. You might have family that's disowned you, like that's what's happened with us. You know, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, it hurts. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, because Jesus is there, and Jesus died for you and for me. And you just have to make that choice to believe in him and believe that he did this so that you have freedom. And then all of a sudden, once you are one of his kids, all of that law, all of that that stuff, it just goes away, because you can just, it's like a weight that's lifted off your shoulders, actually, because you know then that if you stuff up, it doesn't matter, because it's not a conditional love that Jesus gives. It's an everlasting, eternal, all-consuming, warm, cuddly, graceful love that he gives you if you just ask him for it. And if you believe that he did what he did on this day, that he rose. No one else can do that. No one but God, and Jesus is God. And if you have any questions, I know that I can talk a bit, and I hope I haven't confused you, because I do jump around a little bit. Sorry about that. But just know that he loves you. He loves you, he loves you, and he loves me. And knowing that the most amazingest, biggest, grandest person / God in the world, like, nothing can really get to you if he is your dad or your Lord. Like, he's omnipresent, he's everywhere, he knows everything, he knows what you're thinking anyway. And when you have someone like that in your corner, then really Satan does not stand a chance, because you can always run to him, crawl up into his lap in your head, and just be safe there on his lap when no demon, no devil, no nasty people can reach. And hope that makes sense. But yeah, please ask questions if you are a new Christian or you're someone who is searching. I would love to talk to you. I'd love to answer questions, and I have some incredible, lovely mentors that God's put in my life, so that if I don't understand or I don't know the answer, I can find out for you. I've been very blessed with the mentors that God has given me through my life, and yeah, they also help completely shape who I am, and I'm so thankful and grateful for that. Could keep going on and on, but I won't. So anyway, thank you for listening and watching, and I hope that my excitement and my happiness and my joyfulness of today really can touch your heart as well, because it is such a wonderful thing. Like, if you're going to be excited about anything, Jesus rising from the dead is pretty much tops everything that could possibly ever happen. So yeah, thank you so much, and have a great Easter.